I was still working a lot. I wasn't doing anything else. That was all I was doing. My identity was around my work. My partner is also like a complete workaholic. That was all we were doing. And then recently I came to this realization, this is not gonna work out. If this is all I'm gonna do, if this is everything my personality is gonna be around, what if this is taken away from me? What if my company doesn't work out? What if I'm not good at my job anymore? What then? What am I doing? There was too much pressure that I would see my manager sometimes working at 4 a.m. Even though I wasn't going to do that, I felt pressure to do that. Am I slacking off? Layoffs were happening. This is not gonna go nicely if I don't, wake up at earlier or work later. So when I quit and then I started Espresso, now Amber, it is really important to take a step back and think of how you're really doing. I don't take therapy every day.
That would be the dream.
Yeah, that would be the dream, but she doesn't have so much time for me. So that's when you sort of see apps like Amber coming in. So you can just go in and dump everything you're feeling, because I believe the talking can do a lot.
Kuhu, welcome to Realistic Happiness. So nice to have you here.
Yes, thank you, Daisy, for having me.
With people who are listening and tuning in, what are you hoping that they learn from you from this overall episode?
Well, I don't know if I have too much wisdom to spare, but I think I've worked in, a lot of different environments, and I've seen a lot of different things. And I myself have struggled with my mental health a lot. So I guess with this podcast, maybe people can, take away that even though work can be your life and, you can work as much as you want, it is really important to take a step back and, think of how you're really doing, not just physically, but also mentally. And also see those challenges in the workplace, right? Like you can struggle, and it's important to talk and speak up about these things, because if you don't speak up, you're just going to end up suffering a lot.
I absolutely agree. I think our listeners will agree as well. And I can't wait to talk about the initiative that you've taken as well with this mental health, kind of destigmatizing it and speaking about it. So you've mentioned to me before that your first manager impacts your overall professional well-being in your career. So can you share a specific instance perhaps of why you resonate with this, or why you came up with this philosophy?
When I came here to the Netherlands and I started working, it was a very different thing. Like it was a new thing for me, because I started up as an intern. I was working at a company called Optimizely. So when you're fresh, you don't really know what's going on, right? You're like, I'll take whatever I get, whatever kind of manager I get, because you don't have expectations set. But I was great. I was like really lucky. I found the best managers in that company. I had my first manager, was awesome. She was more like a mentor to me. She taught me a lot of things. She would let me do things instead of just, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. No, it was, why don't you try this? And then we sit down and then I trade. And I thought maybe because it was the internship that I was doing that, people were, mentoring me. When I got the full-time job at the same company, the latest manager that I had at that company, her name was Perla. She's my mentor, my friend. She was like, why don't you go ahead and take this awesome project and do it and present it in front of the whole, marketing team that we had. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm so afraid of speaking. And then she was like, no, that is exactly why you should do that. And, these things set the tone right. Like, because now then I had expectations set that this is how my manager should be. Instead of really being my manager, she was more of a mentor. She would teach me things. We would, sit down and discuss things on how I wanted my career to be shaped. What would 1 year, what the next 1 year would look like for me. And those experiences really shaped my expectations around how I want my next manager to be. So that was really nice that I started off my career with really, really talented, really awesome managers who were very supportive in whatever I wanted to do next. So that was really nice to have.
And then what happened?
And then I then yeah, you grow, so you need to leave a place, and I kind of did. I looked for my next job, and I think there was a different style of management that I saw. It wasn't the kind of management that I saw in my previous company, and it was a very hierarchical, very managerial, the kind of things that you see memes about, actually, like you're just like, oh, my manager is, like this and that. And I was like, oh my God, this is real, because
Mm.
I was like, huh, okay, this is really real. This is how real managers are, or what. But I was like, but before, in my company, the previous company, I didn't have those kind of managers. So I think, even though I would say that she was awesome at her job, she did everything she could do to, help me learn. It was just not the style of manager that I wanted for myself. It was because I had different expectations set. So that happened, and it was really hard for me to grow in that place. I felt really stuck. I felt like, even though it was, a Series C startup, I was like, I don't know, what am I gonna do? Is there a growth curve for me? Am I gonna grow? Am I just gonna be here? Am I just gonna be doing whatever is being told to me?
Mm.
Because that wasn't the thing that I was used to, of course. And you are given some tasks to do, but I'm a very creative person. I like to work on projects, and you give me a goal and I'm going to achieve it, something like that. And it was just not clicking. And even though I think I tried to tell her, we just didn't hit the right note. So even though she was really good at her job, I wouldn't say that she was super good at being a manager. So that kind of happened, and it didn't really set the right tone for me to. That wasn't the nicest job that I have, if I must say.
And the comparison, I can imagine. I mean, the poor souls out there who actually had worse managers to start with, and then they left and found a new manager that was better, and like, oh, they're not all toxic. So I feel really sorry for people who experienced that side of it and maybe graduated and don't understand the world of work, and that there are different types of managers. So I absolutely, I agree with you, because my first manager was insanely talented, but also very good at delegating and making you feel empowered and
Mhm.
making you feel very, very special and owning your projects and owning your work, even though you're very junior. So, kind of like what you experienced. And then going from that freedom and self expression at work versus you're silenced, you are kind of micromanaged per se. Manager doesn't trust you. They may even have the best intentions, actually, just kind of helping you navigate through the company, or like not giving you specific information that they have because they want to protect you and don't want you to have a meltdown at work
Yeah.
because they're going through reorgs and you can't know about it,
Mhm.
for example. So some managers can be bad, and have the best intentions, but come across in a bad way. And also some managers just don't work the same way as you, or don't understand how you work. And that can just be, yeah, them not getting the proper training to understand different types of personalities, different types of people as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, you know, your managerial style is sort of it. It's a reflection of who you might be as a person. And I'm not saying it as a bad thing, maybe you're somebody who likes everything to be perfect. So you go ahead and you want that for your, the junior who's working for you. You sort of want the person to do everything perfectly. And it's coming from a good place. You want that person to grow. You want that person to do everything right. You want that person to hit targets. But I think somewhere down the line, they just forget that, maybe this is not the kind of thing that is right for the other person who's working under you. So it can just be, I would say, a lack of communication or a lack of understanding at the most.
Yeah. And you've mentioned to me before that there's more to life than just your job,
Oh, yeah.
right? And I think managers or corporates forget this, that the fact that, okay, we need to work in order to sustain our personal lives and pay our mortgages, etc. But we don't want to live to work, essentially. And maybe our managers are fueled by this, but we're not necessarily fueled by that. So when did you come to that realization that like your work isn't your life?
So I think the recent company that I worked in, the last company that I worked in, it was based out of Boston. So it was a very core US company. And I had worked at, it wasn't really the optimized, it wasn't really a European company. It was more of, we had offices in the US, we had in Europe. So it was like a really good blend of what I was seeing. You sort of do log off at 6 p.m., 7 p.m. If you're asked to work overtime, your manager really cares about it. But that's not what I was seeing in that company. It just wasn't happening. There was, too much pressure that I would see my manager sometimes working at 4 a.m. her time. And even though I wasn't going to do that, I felt pressure to do that. If you see, because we were only just the two of us, the team was really small. I was like, am I slacking off? And that was also the time that layoffs were happening. So I was like really, really tense that this is not going to go nicely if I don't, wake up at earlier or work later. So I remember I used to work till 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. sometimes, and I did it a lot. But that really affected my productivity, right? Nobody's going to be productive at 12 a.m. I'm not. Maybe if you're like a night person and you start at like 6 p.m., then you can be productive at 12 a.m. But I'm not going to be productive if I've been working since 11 a.m. in the morning to 12 a.m. Even though you do take breaks, I'm not sitting there like a robot and just working. But that just wasn't, that was something that I saw. And then I hit this spot where I was like, I am just working. I have no idea what am I doing. And there's so much pressure around it. That's when this realization started hitting. And then when I quit and then I started Espresso, now Amber, I think I was still working a lot. I wasn't doing anything else. That was all I was doing. My identity was around my work. My partner is also like a complete workaholic. So we were just like, that was all we were doing. And then recently I came to this realization, this is not going to work out. If this is all I'm going to do, if this is everything my personality is going to be around, what if this is taken away from me? What if my company doesn't work out? What if I'm not good at my job anymore? What then? What am I doing? So then I decided that no, we need to find something else that we want to do. Anything else. I like to take my dogs on hikes. I'm not good at hiking. I just go and, twist my ankle and stuff. But that helps, that I'm doing something other than working, because that takes my mind off and it builds a different personality around you. You're adding stuff to yourself. So that's sort of how it wasn't like a nice realization, when it happened. I was like, what am I doing? And then you sort of see that, okay, there is more to life. And I think it helps being in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, where you do see old people, really enjoying life.
Mm.
It's completely different, seeing these kind of differences. I'm like, when I'm 60 and I don't want to work anymore, what am I going to do? Because that's all I've done, worked all my life.
Yeah.
Do I have any hobbies? You don't necessarily need to be good at them, but do I know how to do anything else? And the answer was no, I don't have any hobbies. This is all I do. I've built my personality around working, and this is not helping.
I agree. I mean, in Europe in general, you see people. I mean, I walked down the street the other day and it was lunchtime. I was grabbing something and people were having wine and aperols in the restaurants as I was passing by, young people. And I was like, you go, guys. You fucking go, because we work so hard. Just taking breaks and meeting with friends and being social when you work remotely or during your breaks is amazing, and it's so essential. And something you said that's really, really important, if anyone takes away something from this, is your manager influences you. It doesn't matter if they say, oh, but this is what I do. I just do overtime. I wake up at 5. You don't have to. You're leading by example. You're essentially saying through action, this is why I'm so good at what I do, you should replicate that to be
Mhm.
as good as well. And the fact your company was laying people off, etc., you have that extra pressure. Like all eyes are on my manager, all eyes are on us as well. So I just, when you were saying that, I can't believe you worked so many hours just to prove you exist in the workplace.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a quote I listened to recently. I think it was Mo Gordat said it in another podcast. He's like the happiness kind of person, and he said you have to prove at work that you exist by replying to emails, by being
Mhm.
online, just to prove that you are productive, when we're actually just always responsive, aren't we? We're always just replying to stuff, and there's constant pinging and stuff. So it's just interesting that all of that affects our mental health, like how our manager influences us, not through words, but through actions and what they're doing. The work itself, like there's no stop to it, right? And especially if you're ambitious and you want to prove yourself and you don't want to go through a redundancy, you will just, when is it time to stop? Especially when it's a different time zone. And in the US, they don't even know what burnout is. It doesn't, I don't think mental health is really discussed. Maybe I'm just presuming, but
I think they're getting more comfortable with the idea, but it's a very slippery slope, right? There's like two really different opinions. It's like, you go on LinkedIn, you see people talk about, burnout and mental health, but you go on Twitter and you're like, no, hustle culture. They do stuff like that. And then you're like, what am I supposed to believe in? Like, can't there be like a middle ground that I'm still hustling, but I also do want to log off at 8 p.m. and have my dinner with my family,
earlier,
earlier. I
earlier.
want to have dinner at 6 p.m. and I don't want to schedule a meeting. I'm sorry. I think they're getting more warmed up to the idea, but there's still a lot of conflict around it because the US is different. They don't have healthcare like Europeans do. So, you need to sort of your healthcare is sort of, I think, dependent on the company you work at because you're getting
Oh.
reimbursed and stuff like that. And I may be wrong with that, don't quote me on that, but they do have a lot of dependency on their work. It's way more expensive than here. They don't have government support as much as Europeans do, which I think is a little bit why they do work this hard. And I understand where they're coming from, but bad culture sort of breeds bad culture. If you don't put an end to it, if you don't talk about it, I'm not saying log off at 5 p.m. like Europeans do. Don't do that. At least log off at 8 p.m. I'm not asking for much, right? I'm not asking for a lot. I'm just asking you to take a step back and think, are you really okay while you're working? Are you working with you're crying and you're still like that?
Mm.
Because people do. I mean, I did that. I was like, one time I was just like sniffling and crying and I was like, no, I have to do this. I have to do this because, you still need to exist. So I think there's still stigma around it that people don't want to talk about it.
Mm.
People don't want to admit that they're going through something like this because it may not be taken well in the workplace if you're like, I'm not really doing well. And they're going to be like, okay, so what? What should I do?
Yeah.
They're probably going to think that you're not okay and maybe they'll lay you off. And then there goes your health care benefits and retirement and all the stuff that
And your mental health.
and your mental health.
Yeah.
There goes everything. So that's probably why people don't really they're still getting warmed up to the idea of it. And I also think there's this thing where people think it's not a collective thing. Like, if you're struggling, it's just your struggle. I don't think it makes sense. If
Mm.
you're in the workplace, there is something feeding that struggle. I mean, of course, there can be other personal factors that are, feeding your bad mental health or how you're feeling. But the environment you work at for 8 hours, which is a lot if you add it to the week and if you add it to the month, that is a lot of hours you're putting in. So there has to be something which is affecting, your mental health per se. So you do need to talk about it and you do need to say things because it just doesn't make sense if you're not speaking out.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to care enough.
With having the manager that kind of sets the tone to your profession, you also mentioned this earlier, that when you become an entrepreneur as well, that also becomes your kind of standard, right? You kind of remember like, oh, this is what my manager did, or like their manager did. This is how I should operate my business. And that those bad habits come with you in entrepreneurship as well, right? Because you've never done it before and you don't know how to set your schedule and your hours that you're working.
Yeah, I mean, because I think especially for entrepreneurs who are starting off really early, like myself, I'm solo founder. I don't have employees, it's just me. So I have that liberty to do whatever, whenever. It can be a good thing. It can also be a bad thing because that means that when I sit back and relax, I feel like I cannot take the day off. I cannot relax because because it's inculcated in you in the work environment, which is so much about pressure, and you have to work long hours, and you have because they associate long hours with being productive.
Mm.
I don't think that's true, at least not for me. I hope it's not true for other people as well, because if you're working too much, you at the end of the day you're just like, oh my god, there's just so much shit in my head. So you just need to take a step back sometimes, and you sort of get used to putting yourself under pressure, because maybe it's your manager who's putting you under pressure, but then at the end of the day you sort of learn that too. You're like, if I want to perform, I have to put myself under pressure. And entrepreneurship is a very high pressure job. It can be, it can drain you, and you really need to look out for what is draining me. How much is my cup filled today? Is it like overflowing? Is it, little bit? How am I feeling? Because you do learn these things from the environment that you've worked at. And because it's just you and you don't trust yourself enough
Mm.
sometimes, especially, I don't trust myself enough. I'm like, what if? Because the whole thing, the whole product relies on me. It's just me. And I'm like, if I take a break, if I take a vacation, what if, what if? And then it just doesn't help, right? Which is why if you're in an environment which is more, to what you want, or more creative, and it gives you that, that you can take a break sometimes when you're not feeling it, you can take a break. If that is inculcated in you, you are more likely to be kind to yourself. And this is something that I learned in therapy, where my therapist is like, what is the first thing that you say to yourself? That can be your conditioning. That's the first thing that you say to yourself in your, in any situation. For example, if it's a high stress situation, what is the first thing that you say to yourself? A lot of times it is something which doesn't really align with you, because that is what you're conditioned to think, because that is what maybe your parents have conditioned you to think or act like that, or your managers, because that also plays a really big role, or maybe your teachers or your mentors. And that is the conditioning. That is what, that's not, maybe not the real you. That is not what you're feeling, that's not what you're thinking, and that is the conditioning that you need to break out of, if that makes sense.
Of course, yeah. And it's so good that you also spoke about this with an external person, not your manager or at work or anything, but a therapist, someone who's trained and can actually guide you and gave you such good advice as well. So you had this job that was US based. You saw the toll it had on your mental health and your well-being as well. So when did that transition happen with like starting your own business?
Um, so I think I've always been someone who has, I just like sit and there's like ideas popping out of my head. So since I was like 17, 18, back when I was at home in India, I had like these little bit of apps that I would ask someone to build, and I would just like to, like just put ideas on paper. It was just something fun for me to do. So I remember when I was 18, me and my now partner, I asked him that, what if we built like a journal, like a journaling app? And he was like, yeah, that's a good idea. That time there was no AI and no nothing. So we were like, okay, let's build it. And he built that. And that was sort of, I was really passionate about mental health and helping people, because in a place like India, It is not really talked about. There is nothing like mental health. You're crazy.
Oh,
Something like
wow.
that. You're crazy if there's nothing called depression. Just go take a walk. Something like that. Because it's very stigmatized in, especially, I think, in Asia. I can speak for India at least, that it is a very stigmatized topic. So I wanted to help people with that journaling gap. Well, that didn't really work out because, I was in school and I built that and I was really happy about it and I just let it go. When I started falling into these patterns at my workplace where I was in so much pressure, I was like, this manager is really not working out for me. I tried to talk to her manager, but then she left. It was like a whole deal where I just couldn't find someone to fall back on. I was like, I don't know where to go. I don't know who to tell things to. I don't know who to talk to. And at that time, I wasn't really into therapy and everything. So I was just so stuck that I felt like this job is like going to be the end of me, even though it was like not going to be the end of me. But I was like, this is just too much for me. I'm not okay. I don't want to wake up and work, but I still need to wake up and work. And that's sort of when I came into this idea that, what if this is how a lot of people are feeling? Because this is a terrible feeling to have if you're waking up feeling like, I don't want to go to work, and your manager is not listening to you. That's how I sort of came up with the idea that, what if we could make something which could, change the company's culture and we could talk about mental health more. And that's when I decided that I cannot do this job anymore. I'm sorry, bye-bye. And then I quit. And then I
High
started
five.
high five.
That was
And
amazing.
then I started Espresso, which the first version was where it was like a whole web app which we would give to companies to sort of keep, understand how their employees are doing, and stuff like that. That's how it sort of started. It was a good idea on paper, but it was like a lot of work. Um, but yeah, but then I realized that that's the problem, right? Companies don't really care about their employees as much. They don't care about their mental health. They only care about, hitting KPIs and whatnot, even though they should be caring about their employees. They don't really care about their employees. And
Mm.
I wanted them to care with that product. I was hoping that I could bring in some radical change. But then I was like humbled, really humbled. Yeah.
Where did the name Espresso come from? I love
Um,
it.
it was just, express yourself, something like that. And, I like coffee. And it was just like pretty lame. But then I just came up with it. And then, yeah, it was just like sitting and one night, I'm like, what do I name this? This is made. And what am I supposed to name it? I'm like, I was drinking coffee. And then, like, okay, let's just name it Espresso.
Mm.
That's how the name sort of came out.
Yeah, you just need something to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know we've rebranded the podcast. It had a different name. We were also, I think it was like for 2 days, we were writing stuff, asking ChatGPT. They were obviously crap names.
Yeah.
And we went with Talent Exchange just to push the idea. And then we rebranded it. There's
Mhm.
no harm there's no embarrassment in rebranding halfway through a product launch or
Yeah, especially if you're early stage, nobody really remembers or cares about your, what your logo is, or nobody cares about your name and stuff like that. They just want what you're giving to be working. And then you can always like go back and change the name of your company, which I kind of did because I was like, I don't know if I want to, I want a chatbot to be named Espresso because I wanted something more personal. So I just named it Amber because
Mm.
it sounded more warm and nice. And it was like, I was like, I need to start fresh. There was a lot of bad feelings involved with Espresso because it didn't really work out. And I was really ashamed to sort of admit it that it didn't work out. I was like, what are people going to say? I'm like, who people? Who are those people that I'm thinking about? What people? Nobody knows me, which is a good thing that people don't know me. So I can always go ahead and start fresh. And that's sort of what I did later on, just go start fresh.
Amber, I absolutely agree, has this warm feeling to it. We went on the company page
Mhm.
just to see the new logo and everything and the colors. And I like the logo. It's like a scribbled out brain, I
Yeah.
think, right?
Yeah.
I love it. And I guess with there's many challenges being an entrepreneur, right? So you quit your job. Good for you. Love that for you. Definitely people resonate. I was just listening to that thinking, I have a friend whose friend passed away, took her own life due to work. And Yeah, even my stepdad took his own life due to work. There's people, my sisters, for example, who wake up like, oh, do really again have to go to work. So it really, really does get to that stage where it's like, is it worth it? Like, this is my life. Like you said, if you don't have any hobbies and you lose friends or have fights with people because you are burnt out in your job and you hate your life, essentially, it can get to such a terrible, terrible stage. So there are people that truly resonate, especially people in Asia, people in India, people in the UK, I find as well would resonate with this app. So one of the challenges was starting being a sort of solopreneur, right? Doing your own thing. And then, like you said, people not knowing you. So how do you push the product? Companies not caring. What other challenges did you face whilst launching Espresso and then rebranding to Amber?
So I think one was that I used to work in marketing. Even though I worked for tech companies, that doesn't really mean I knew how to make the app or I knew how to code. I was very resourceful with it. I learned how to, make a mock-up on Figma, and I went and made the whole thing through Canva and Figma, and then I made it sort of like a whole mock-up of how the app's sort of going to work. And then I gave it to a contractor, and he made the whole app. I think that was a good achievement, but that didn't really mean that the app was really working, because there's a lot of things that go into making just the app work. And just wasn't working. And I didn't want to put the money in to that contractor who was charging like an arm and leg to just sort of, make the app. And then he didn't really make it well. And then I was like, how is this even gonna scale if the app is not working, if it's not good? And that's what happened when we beta tested Espresso. We got a great response. We had 300 people in the wait list.
Wow.
We had first users. There was HubSpot. There was also Optiver who wanted to use our product, and it was a big win. But what happened, because I was non-technical, I couldn't handle all that, all those people coming in, even though I could, ask for help, which I did. I asked, my partner to help me, who has a technical background. I asked the contractor to help me, but it's just a lot of back and forth. And I just felt super helpless, and I'm not used to feeling helpless. I want to learn and I want to do things myself. So that is when I came up with the fresh mindset that no, I have to take a step back and I need to learn basic coding if I want to have a product which is, AI focused and which is, so technical. I need to learn how to build this app. I need to start from scratch. That is why I completely, wrote away the idea of Espresso. I'm like, I'm not gonna pick up the scraps of it and learn from that. I just like disappeared for like 2-3 months because I was like, I'm just gonna learn how to make an application. And at that point, I almost quit. That I cannot do this anymore. I was almost like back at LinkedIn looking at jobs. I was like, I cannot do this anymore because I don't know how to code. And I see all these coders, they're so experienced. And then I felt like, these people have, put years of their lives and now they're good at building an app. What am I going to do in 3 months? But then my therapist, who shout out to her, is like,
Yes.
no, do it. You're going to be able to do it. You should do it. And then I was like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? That it's not going to work. And then I can just go back to working a job. And then I did. And I think that was like the hardest part, was realizing that as a solo founder, you do need to wear a lot of hats,
Mm.
that I just cannot, sometimes it's not easy to find a technical co-founder. A lot of times these co-founder relationships sort of come out of, somebody and somebody knows somebody, and then, you meet and then something clicks and then you're in it. That wasn't the case for me. I was working for corporates, and I did work for a startup, but I was in a very different department, right? I was in marketing. It was a completely different world. So I never met hardcore, coders, or I didn't meet anybody who would qualify as a co-founder. Which is why then I realized that this is not going to work until and unless I know how to build it. I know how to fix it. And if it breaks, I know how to fix it again. So I had to sort of go through the cycle of learning how to code. I'm not going to say I'm like a pro, but I'm good enough that now I've made an application. It breaks. I can use Claude and I can use ChatGPT and I can use some
Wow.
other apps. And I'm like, okay, try, help me fix it. So yeah, you do need to learn a lot and you need to um, sort of develop a really different skill set. But I think that's just part of being an entrepreneur.
I just salute you. It's the determination, and thank you for being so honest as well. The fact that it was hard. It's not just as easy as plopping something on like the app store and then, oh, you're going to become rich. I feel like that's the big misconception about being an entrepreneur, especially like an online product or an app that you can just chat GPT it, get the code, bung it on, and then people like HubSpot, for
Mhm.
example, such big companies, geez, as first clients, will be invested in it. That's not the truth. Like you, I guess you were working 12-hour days again, learning to code, also marketing the product. I see you on LinkedIn a lot. Just like I love your, by the way, no nonsense BS founder stories on LinkedIn, your posts. They are absolutely amazing. If
Thank you.
anyone wants to follow Kuhu and her journey, your daily posts are incredible because you lay everything out. There's no shit. You literally just say all the
Yeah.
things that went wrong, all the things that went right.
Yeah, I was so tired of putting so much pressure over on myself and then putting this mask that, everything is going well. And I was so tired of opening LinkedIn and seeing people, yay, I did this, yay, I did that. And no, I mean, no hate to you. Good that it's working out for you. It's not working out for me. I'm not a perfect person. And then I was like, you know what? Nothing is working out for me. So I'm going to be really angry and I'm just going to go and be like, a no BS founder stories that I'm just going to tell you what's working, what's not working. So people like me, they don't quit. Instead, they see that, okay, she's going through something. I'm also going through it. So this is normal, like normalizing that it's a struggle. Not everything is perfect. You don't find 500 clients, the day you launch. You don't
Mm.
get like number one product of the day on Product Hunt, just on your first launch. Not everything is rainbows and butterflies, and you don't need to put yourself under that much pressure that, everything is going to be good and it has to be good. Like, I say that to myself that everything has to be good. And that's not true. That's not how life works. Not everything is rainbows and butterflies. There's also it's not just black and white. It's also gray. So that's why I sort of I'm like I live in the gray area. So I'm going to show people that it's okay to live in the gray area. If you're there, it's okay. You don't need to put yourself under that much pressure. It's okay to struggle sometimes.
I find so much comfort in your posts because I want to start a thing eventually and just knowing almost like the step by step that you take. And it's almost like you're journaling, isn't it?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you're just putting your thoughts out there, the real side of things, which I love, by the way, hence realistic
Thank you.
happiness. But I find a lot of comfort in your posts. And what's the feedback been from people, like comments or messages?
I think I don't really have those many followers on LinkedIn, like 600 something. So it's not like a lot of engagement, but I have been getting a lot of people coming in and some of them are commenting. I feel like the response has been okay. I think people really want to listen to this. I do feel like I hope they want it because I'm not stopping to post
Good.
this. This
Thank
is going
you.
on for me. But yeah, it has been okay. I think people do relate to it. I hope as I post more, as I try to build my own presence on a very crowded platform. I hope that I can, bring something different to the table.
I love it. I love real, authentic, genuine posts. Tell us more about Amber, though, because Amber is your little baby. You've worked so freaking hard to get Amber launched, and the response from the outside looks like it's going really, really well. So tell us more about how it differentiates from other mental health tools.
Um, I think what we see as in today's world, we do have AI, this whole hype around it. And I'm on it, I do agree that AI can do a lot, but there's also this misconception that people think that it's going to take away their jobs and it's going to replace human beings. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's what, at least that's not what Amber's here to do. It's not here to replace real therapists. I have a therapist myself. She is helping me through a lot of stuff, and I couldn't imagine my life without going to a real person. But I sit back sometimes, and when my therapist is not available, because I don't take therapy every day, that would be,
That
she
would be the
has,
dream.
yeah, that would be the dream, but she doesn't have so much time for me. So that's when, you sort of see apps like Amber coming in, which use empathy and AI to sort of, bridge the gap between therapy and other tools. A lot of tools on the market today are just journaling apps or, meditation apps and breathing apps and whatnot. But there's nothing where you can, maybe there are, but at least that's what Amber brings to the table, is somebody you can talk to. Not all the time you can go to your friend and talk to things about. You can't really burden your partner with a lot because maybe the person is going through a lot. You can't really fall back on your family, friends. You just don't want to bother someone. But this application, it doesn't get bothered because it's an app. It doesn't get
Mm.
bothered. It cares, but it doesn't care enough to get bothered, right? So
Mm.
you can just go in and dump everything you're feeling, because I believe the talking can do a lot. It changes a lot of things. It helps you think straight. At least that's the case with me. And a lot of other people that I've talked to, they can just, talk and figure things out. And that's what the future of Amber is. That's what I sort of hope that Amber brings. That you can have a conversation, a non judgmental conversation with someone who can act as your friend, a companion. You can just, you're going through a bad day, you open the app and you're like, hey, I just had a really, really bad day. And then you can just sort of sort through what you're feeling, and, you can sort of just talk to someone who can offer you more human-like approach to things. And not just, I think journaling apps and meditation apps, they're great, but sometimes you really just need someone to talk to instead of sit, close your eyes, and just meditate. I would be really angry if that's the only app I had on my phone, and I was like, no, I don't want to do this. I want to talk to someone, right?
Yeah, it's just happy washing. Like, not if you've had a really, really terrible day, if you've suffered a loss, if you've lost your job, if I don't know, you nearly got hit by a car on the way doing groceries, like you're just feeling like shit.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is just reframe your mindset and do affirmations and
Yeah.
like happy wash essentially. So I really like what you're doing with the app, and you've had some responses already, right? You said quite a lot of people have left reviews and stuff. What's the response been so far?
I think we launched on Product Hunt and we got around 100 people upvoted it. So we got like good response on the app overall. I have some users who are using it and they're repeat users. They're coming back. I don't have like 50, 60 users. I mean, I wish, but there are just 13 people.
Maybe after this
But
episode.
hopefully. But, like there's just 13 people, but they're coming back. So that means they want to have that conversation, that they want to talk to someone. So I think I would want to say that the response has been good. I wouldn't want to go overboard and say, it's been great, but it's been good. It's been what I was expecting. I put a goal that I want 10 users by the end of the day. I got 13, so that I surpassed that,
Yeah.
which was a big deal. I was like, okay, at least the last product, people weren't really able to use it. This one they're using. But now we just want to, go to the users and ask for feedback on, what do you think? Is this working? Is it not working? Because I don't want to keep working on the assumption that this is going to make everything okay. I mean, I want to ask people, is it really working? Because customer is they're the people
Yeah.
who, who you're serving to. So is this really helping you? Is it not helping you? Is Amber not talking to you the way you wanted to talk to you? Is the AI sort of still finicky? Is it, is the app breaking? So we just want to clear all those things up, which is why I'm going to go to the users and talk to them, and hopefully they want to talk to me and give me some feedback on the application.
Yeah, I mean, so the difference was Espresso is more B2B, more for businesses to have the app and then roll it out to their employees. This one is more like I can download it,
Yes.
right? And just use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have like on App Store right now. It's just like on web. So you just go on like Google or Safari and you can just open the account. You can just start using it. Yeah. So it's more personal. I think with Espresso, it was there was a lot of friction for such a small company to go in as, just me. There was a lot of friction. But this, anybody can use it. You can use it. I use it. Uh, I'm the 14th customer of my own
Mm.
application. I go, I'm like, I'm not having a good day today.
Yeah.
And I mean, it works. I'm like, as much as I would like to say that, it's because I'm a critic, very big critic of my own things, the biggest one. So I want to say that this is not working, but it does help me sometimes, when I'm having a crappy day. I talk to my own application that I built and it makes me feel better. So, I mean, I hope it's doing the same for other people as well.
I agree. And I think an important thing is to use it with caution, right? Use it
Yeah.
sparingly. Don't make it replace your friends, your partner, because it can get addictive, AI,
Yeah.
especially an AI chatbot that's there to support you, to help you, to be your cheerleader. As a susceptible person, like I could get addicted to that.
Yeah, I mean, every piece of technology you should use with a grain of salt, You shouldn't rely on it. It is not here to replace therapy. Please get a therapist if you feel like you're going through something which is really, really bothering you, because it did for me. And I go to therapy, even though I have this application. It's something which is here to bridge the gap. When you really don't have anyone to talk to, sometimes you're not able to sleep. Everybody's sleeping. You don't want to bother someone. So you just go and talk to the application. But it's not here to be like, I'm your only friend in the whole world, because that's
Mm.
not true. Use it with caution, like you would, use Instagram and LinkedIn and any other application. Don't get addicted to it, because
Mm.
I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want someone to be like, I'm addicted to Amber. I mean, it would be a good, compliment, but then I would be a little worried. I'm like, dude, are you okay? You sure you want to do that? Because, you should have real friends. You should have real people who you can talk to.
I'm sure you've thought about it as well, but have you considered all the safety aspects around using an AI chatbot for your mental
Yes,
well-being?
I think this is something that I'm still. It's a very anxiety-giving topic to me, because I'm really scared that I want the right user to land it, because I don't want somebody who's going through a crisis situation to be there. If you're suicidal, if you
Mm.
have some real issues, bigger issues, which a professional should handle, that is where you should go to. So we have trained the AI to sort of pick up on these nicks and knacks. And if it sees that, this is going haywire, the application sort of has all the helpline numbers. The chatbot is going to send it to you. And then we do get like a notification on the back end that this XYZ user, even though we're not really allowed to, know what user it is. But in crisis situation, we can, have the information, and we can sort of send them that, okay, you need help. These are the crisis hotlines,
Mm.
and you should really, really, talk to somebody. So I think that's the most that we can do. We can't really push someone to, call a crisis hotline and talk to a professional, but we have this disclaimer all over the application that this is only, this is not for crisis situations. You are not supposed to use this for crisis situations. So, I mean, till now it's going well, and we do want to add in more caution to it. So
Yeah.
as we're growing, this is something which is number one priority for me, that, it's a safe application to be used,
Yeah.
that not everybody who is, in a crisis, they shouldn't be using it. So this is, of course, top priority for me. And, I wouldn't want anybody to, fall in a bad situation and on my
Yeah.
application. I wouldn't want that from, like, no. So we're trying our best to get whatever caution we can have. We're teaching the AI to sort of behave in that way and
Mm.
pick up on these things. So till now, our users have been treating it like a companion, because that's how we sort of market it as well. I
Mm.
don't want to say that, it's an AI therapist. I may have said that a couple of times, but, I do want to give it like a side note that it is a companion, not a therapist, right?
Mm.
Because there's a difference between the two.
Yeah, yeah, it can get dangerous if it's like a therapy
Yeah.
replacement app. So it's good that it's a companion, it's a bridge, and you have the best intentions there as well. You want to help people because you were feeling that way at one point. other people can relate to it as well, and need that support and don't want to be burdens to their friends or families. When because we always research prior to doing these interviews, Kuhu, and there was this horrendous story. I think it was a few weeks ago. This poor boy, 14 years old, took his own life because it wasn't a therapy app or
It
anything,
was
but it was
a
an AI.
character AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And became very reliant on it, and
Mhm.
secluded in his bedroom, just always asking it questions. And it asked it if like suicide was a good option, and essentially said yes. And then yeah, it's just, I can't believe these situations are real. So it's good that you're always looking into it, you're always optimizing it, you're always giving additional support for those that maybe get a bit carried away
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
take
we
it too far.
definitely don't want that happening. I wouldn't wish it would happen. I wouldn't wish anybody does it, but especially because, this is something that I put out, and this is from my best intentions. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not earning millions of dollars because of this application. This is because I struggled and I want people to talk to someone. And that is it, right? So I don't want anybody to go overboard with it. I don't want anybody to get addicted to it or replace it with the real things, right? So I hope that we can tackle it. We're tackling it right now. I mean, everything is going well.
Yeah.
And I hope that as much as we scale, this is always going to be our number one priority.
Yeah. And I should have downloaded it and used it myself prior to
That's
this
okay.
episode. But as a person with ADHD who gets addicted to stuff very quickly, and I'm currently very reliant on Claude and ChatGPT for my business and my Realistic Happiness podcast, I want to give it a go and give you, because you trust me, and
Yeah,
we've spoken now, and just give you feedback, like how I feel about it, etc., and like my user response.
yes, of course.
Yeah, I think that would be super cool. But I think you mentioned to me previously as well that Amber is based off behavioral, like it's trained on that, right?
Yes. We don't want the chatbot to really be a chatbot, because that would be super annoying talking to a bot. So we wanted it to have some sort of, it to know that what kind of types of therapy that it can sort of, push in its conversations. For example, if a user is like, this is my chain of thoughts, and I want to, restructure those chain of thoughts. And that's what, cognitive behavioral
Mm,
therapy sort of is. So the AI can sort of help with, reframing your thoughts, and maybe it can sort of help you, get, a different perspective. But that's all it can do.
mm.
So we're not, again, like I said, I'm not here to replace a real therapist, but I also don't want my application to talk like a bot, because that's so 2012,
Mm.
that, I'm fine. And the bot says, okay, good for you. That's not what Amber does. If you're like, it asks you, how are you doing? And the person says, I'm fine. It will dig deeper, okay, are you really feeling fine? What's going on? Anything on your mind? So it's more conversational than it is, just straightforward. Okay, you're fine. Good for you. We want it to behave in a way that would not be annoying to the users, because if my application told me, you're fine, good for you, and I'm not really fine. I mean,
Mm.
I just wanted to do a little bit of drama, and not say that, I'm doing XYZ. So that's what we've sort of tried to inculcate in our AI, because I think today AI is getting like, we're used to Claude and we're used to ChatGPT, and the conversations have gotten way better since we started
Mm.
using them,
Yeah.
right? Earlier, it used to be straight up annoying, and now it's still annoying, but it's gotten much better. And that's what we're trying to do with Amber as well, because it's not something which is going to write you, paragraphs of your work or something like that. Because it is, we're talking of it as a companion. We want it to talk like a real companion instead of a really bad bot.
Yeah. And something interesting as well, maybe for your user research, etc. I watched a YouTube video of like this brain doctor essentially explaining how women vent and how they want to be listened. They basically just want a space to be heard. They
Mhm.
don't want feedback or
Yeah. Yeah.
advice, which is sometimes what happens in relationships, right? That the man wants to be logical and help, and the woman just wants to rant about how
Yeah.
shitty her day was and that a colleague, I don't know, spilt her coffee or something. And we don't want a logical
Mhm.
piece of advice. We
Mhm.
just want you to give us some space to absorb this negative energy, and we want to just release it. So I feel like this app will help us specifically as well, just have that space where we're just like, "Ugh, I don't know who to say this to, but I need to just get it out of me because it's just this amped up, built up energy
Mhm.
inside of me that I just need to shove
Shove
off."
off. Yeah.
And I feel like that's a very kind of safe, interactive online space you can
Mhm.
put it. So then you can kind of go on with your day and just have better relationships, I
Mhm.
guess, with your family and friends. But like we keep reiterating in this episode, it does not replace your partner, your family members, your social circle, your therapist.
Mhm.
So please take it as a companion and actually as an add-on to your life where
Yeah.
you can just vent, and then you're like, oh, great.
Feels better.
I can go out with my friends now and not just
Yeah.
bloody chew their ear off about my colleague spilling my coffee
Yeah.
today, and actually have meaningful connections outside of my anger and my
Mhm.
rage, my
Yeah. Makes
stress.
sense.
Where do you see the world of AI mental health support in the future?
Um, I think I am definitely seeing a lot more applications which are powered by AI to sort of help you um, get a lot like Amber, actually. So that's what I'm seeing. That, again, this is not going to replace a real therapist because people have therapists are, I would say, just straight up awesome because, my therapist has helped me through a lot and I wouldn't want anything to replace it. But I think as AI gets more and more intelligent, it can be fed with a lot more empathy. I think these previous chatbots and stuff that, were really, really annoying, I think that is going to be, redundant and replaced with better AI and better conversations that people can have because we are used to apps like ChatGPT and Claude now a lot, like I said
Mm.
before as well. That is how the world is sort of being restructured. Now we don't have the time to go and Google something, but we want to ask ChatGPT and Claude because you're just chatting. So that's also how I see, AI playing a really big role in helping people with on-demand support.
Mm.
Because not all the time is your therapist available for you, or you have those counselors at work, but sometimes you just don't want to talk to them because you don't want to go overboard with your feelings, right? And I have trust issues, right? I wouldn't want to go to a company therapist and tell the therapist that, my manager's not really working out for me
Mm.
because I'm like, what if she just goes and snitches on me? And I know that this is that they have really strong work ethic and they're not really supposed to do that, but still, it's, maybe it's in her notebook and somebody sees the notebook. I'm just so paranoid all the time. So I wouldn't want to go and tell somebody about my feelings who works in my company, right? So I think this can be something which is a very complementary thing.
Mm.
And it sort of, I hope it just gets better and better with time.
Mm.
And we can have more on demand support, whenever you need it, sort of thing, more in the future.
I think it's wonderful. I think, like I said before, it would just aid our lives. It won't replace
Yeah.
relationships, like you said before. It won't replace our jobs. It won't replace our people in our circles. And I feel like, yeah, I agree with you with the snitching side of it. Absolutely. There's so many people that I know have been through burnout and have spoken to company doctors, and they're like, oh, and now my manager says this and this, even though it should be integrity, should be completely, actually it's unethical, right, for a doctor to
It is.
to spill your
Yeah.
secrets to the company, but you never know
You
what's
never know.
said behind closed doors. But I also feel like if stuff's embarrassing, like, and I don't want to necessarily tell my friends, tell my partner, for example, like I actually, if I knew Amber existed, I wouldn't have asked ChatGPT, but I actually put this prompt in ChatGPT once because I was getting so annoyed that people were like, it sounds so stupid, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, that people were like copying my content, like even word for word videos, whatever. It's
Mhm.
so bloody stupid, I know, but as someone who's constantly putting a lot of effort in, I was getting really annoyed and I couldn't tell my friends like, oh, someone's copied me, or like post it on LinkedIn because that's so cringe.
Mhm.
So I actually asked ChatGPT, like, as my therapist, as a cognitive behavior therapist, can you help me deal with this issue?
Mhm.
And it's like so embarrassing, but for ChatGPT is so unbiased. Like, sure, you should look at it as a compliment. You should look at it as you are inspirational, setting trends. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh my God, that helped me
Yeah,
so much. And like
exactly.
to this day, I just think of that and I'm like, thank you, AI robot. That's not even a real person. Thank you for fixing one of my biggest issues in my life. That it was like an intrusive thought and I felt like it was so dumb, but I felt so heard. And I didn't want to spend 80 euros for a therapist
Yeah,
to tell
exactly.
her
I
that.
mean, this is exactly the things like I discuss with
Yeah.
Amber. Just don't use ChatGPT. Use Amber instead.
I know I
You
made that
know, just
mistake.
do
Sorry.
that.
Sorry, Kuhu.
But that's what I do. Sometimes my dog really annoys me. Like she really annoys me sometimes, and I don't want to waste the 1 hour I get in my therapy talking about how not behaved my dog sometimes can be. So I go to Amber and I'm like, my dog is really annoying me. This is what she does, and this just I am gonna burst with anger. And then it sort of, helped me calm down that no, it's just an animal. She has had like, intelligence of a 2-year-old. We should look at her more kindly. And then I was like, yeah, that's true. I'm so, this is not fair. She's just an animal. And then sort of, help me around, just it's little bit of your thoughts that you
Mm,
have throughout the day that you want to deal with instantly.
mm.
Like, for example, before coming here, I was feeling super nervous. So I went to Amber and I was like, I'm feeling super nervous. I have my first podcast. And then I was like, no, you should be super happy. And, then it sort of helped me not feel nervous instead
Yeah.
of going through to a breathing app that would tell me to breathe 10 times. I'm
I
like,
hate that advice. I can't think of I breathe anyway. I don't want to think about it. It
yeah.
freaks me out.
Yeah, I don't want to breathe. I just want to talk to someone. And
Yeah.
my partner is out of town, so I couldn't talk to him. My dog doesn't speak, so I couldn't talk to
Mm.
her. I'm like, who do I talk to? I don't want to wake up my sister because she's just going to be like, just go deal with your own shit. I'm just sleeping.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So that is what, I hope that AI starts to, help you with, like you would do with ChatGPT, but use Amber instead.
Wow. And I was just kind of thinking of all the problems it could solve. I could tell all of my guests to use Amber before coming on, so they're all relaxed like you and can just go through the interview without freaking out. But also job interviews. Oh my God, what a lifesaver it would be. Just like, oh shit, I'm just going to speak to the MD of the company. I'm freaking out. And just like, instead of saying breathe or count to 3 and think of be grateful, gratitude bombs, think of what you're grateful for
Yeah.
today or whatever, or touch grass. Like, no, just actually, you're going to be all right. You're experienced. I don't know what advice it would give, but I presume is something like this, just
Mhm.
kind of reconditioning you. It would, oh my gosh, everything. Like so many
Yeah.
like things. Like if you're gonna break up with someone, or if you've got a very scary doctor's appointment you're gonna go into, or if you're, I don't know, going to a court case for battling for, I don't know, you're splitting up and getting a divorce and you
Yeah.
need custody of your kids. That's a stressful situation. There's so many actually micro stressful situations as well. And I feel like now people are more online and kind of, yeah, we want to have this facade when we meet our friends and stuff that everything is going fine. I don't want to burden you with my problems. What a nice solution to all of these so many issues in life.
Yeah. Just tiny issues, I think, can burden you a lot at the end of the day.
Mm,
It can be little things and then they just pile up, pile up, pile up, pile up. And then at the end of the day, you just like you go off on someone whose fault it really wasn't. I do that all the time.
mm,
I go off on my partner. I'm like, you did this, you didn't put the dishes in the dishwasher. I wasn't really angry about the dishes on the dishwasher. I was just having a really crappy day and I just wanted to vent and I didn't have somebody, but then I just went off on poor him. So that sort of happens a lot. And that's something that, it can help with, just little problems in your little day and hopefully make you feel a little better.
I'm gonna, I forgot to put the cards on the desk, but basically I'm part of D2 Collective. As you all know, well, close friends, now you know, I'm part of the D2 Collective, which is a tech global community connector, essentially. And they bring people together to build meaningful connections. So, Kuhu, you are my victim for today.
Oh, great.
I can't even open this box. You can put like 2 hours later. And I'm just going to pick the first card, ask you a question. Okay. Question for you. What is something you gave up that positively changed your life?
Um, Thinking too much into the future. Again, shout out to my therapist. I was too much. I was thinking too much. I was like, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? Tomorrow, day after tomorrow, what is my product going to look like 1 year from now? It was too much. It was too much pressure. I took the pressure off and now I take it one day at a time. Sometimes I take it 1 hour at a time. Sometimes I'm like 1 minute at a time. And that helps. Listening to myself, listening to what I want instead of putting too much pressure on myself. It has been instrumental to, changing how I see things, changing how I treat myself. I treat myself with more kindness. I take it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. I listen to what I want instead of thinking, what do other people want out of me? Thinking too much into the future, planning too much, things don't go the way you want them to go. So take that away from your life. Don't think too much. Don't overthink it. Don't overcomplicate it. It's pretty simple. Breathe and just, take it one day at a time. Don't overburden yourself with things that won't even matter because things change, life changes, so nothing is constant. Everything can change in a jiffy. So just take the pressure off.
You are like you're the second person to tell me that who's got their own business to just take it one day, 1 minute at a time. I pre-plan things in advance. I don't know if you can see, I've got my year calendar there. I've written everything until December 2025. And I'm sure things will change month per month as I'm establishing realistic happiness. So it's, again, thank you so much for saying that again. I feel like I needed that lesson. I think other people needed that lesson. And perhaps also using Amber is a good is a good piece of advice. Get those overthinking, intrusive thoughts out of your head. Give it to a bot, a good bot, behavioral bot that can actually give you solid advice. And you don't have to panic and overthink and pre-plan everything.
Yeah.
That was advice for myself. But thank you so much. Thank you to D2 as well for giving us these wonderful conversation cards. Kuhu, thank you so, so much for coming today. You have provided me with so much information, lessons, and I also am really, really curious about how the world of AI and mental health will kind of coexist with each other and in our world as well. So thank you so much for giving us all the information and letting me pick your brain.
Yes, thank you for having me over. It has been really nice to talk about these things.